Alright, hello everyone. This is again Beaning. This time my BlazBlue rant's going to be more of an instructional video. Essentially, people keep complaining to me that Nu is unfair or cheap or whatever. If you don't know what BlazBlue is, just look it up. And if you do happen to have it, you most likely know what I'm talking about. V13 or Nu is the crazy, creepy android last boss chick with the summon swords. And people complain about her being the cheapest character. So, from requests from a few of my friends, I've decided to make an explanation telling people how to beat her, or what characters are best suited for beating Nu, if you're having a hard time. If you don't believe me, just try it out. It really does work. Now, the first thing that you have to know is about how Nu works. Essentially, she has very few moves. Almost all of them are her drive. She has just low hitting drives, overhead drive, slightly overhead, large overhead, two different ones in the air. They each have their own follow-up. Her quarter circle back drive is basically a series of spikes that you can make them chase the enemy all across the field, or a blade that goes front or from behind that goes across the back. The main moves that she has right here are gravity technique that she uses to slow down enemies from moving through the air and messing up projectiles. And, let's see. Basically, all of her close-in moves suck. Now, what you need to remember is almost everything she does is based around a projectile. So the character Iron Tiger, who's basically anti-projectile, can mess her up very easily. He has a move called Sledgehammer, which is his forward quarter circle weak attack, where he basically swings his fist downward. Now, while you're doing this, you're immune to any projectile, and you can stop it and not do the follow-up attack. And essentially, if you time it, or if you just do it over and over, you'll pretty much punch through all the attacks as you make your way toward the other side of the field, where he can take out about half of her health with any of his grabs. And believe me, I've played against people. My brother and I have been playing, and we both have been practicing to see how to make Nu less unfair. And Iron Tiger is extremely annoying when you're using Nu, because whenever he moves back or does his special attacks, he's completely invincible, and Nu doesn't have too much that can do anything to him up close, since he becomes invincible close range and does a very powerful grab. Plus, his magnetism will pull her close to him, which makes it hard for her to stay the right distance to make her projectiles work. Let's see. Taukaka can move around pretty quickly and jump over the blades, but she's a little predictable since if you just aim upward, it moves across the whole screen. So most people that jump around through the air, like Arakune and Taukaka, have a very difficult time getting to her. Let's see. Jin Kisaragi, basically, he can do a couple things when he's up close, because most of his blizzard techniques are invincible when they activate, and knock her away. It's a little bit risky to do that since you give her distance, but his freezing techniques are a lot quicker, or sometimes quicker than her drives, and can interrupt her from doing her attacks. The main thing that you want to focus on with Gene is to be able to do his Ice Blade where he glides across the screen toward her, because this basically has a perfect range. I'd recommend doing his Strong one or his Drive one, so you can actually hit her. But basically, her overheads are far too slow to hit Gene when he does that. All of her mid-air drives basically go over his head since he's still pretty low to the ground, but as he's riding on the blade, he actually goes over her regular drive, which puts him at the right distance to go through all of her regular drive attacks. The Spike Chaser is also very slow to activate. It's possible to stop with Sickle Chaser, but normally people would want to start a combo with the regular drive, and by the time they do it, his strong quarter circle back technique would pretty much go all the way across the field and hit her anyway. Of course, her gravity field can still interfere with that, but that's slow to activate too, and you could probably get close to her by the time she does that, and still hit her anyway. What you really have to remember is that Nu is pretty strong, but if you were to do her entire advanced combo, where it's about like 23 to close to 30 hits, it actually doesn't do as much damage as a combo from Ragna, Jean, or especially Iron Tiger. Iron Tiger could do about the same damage of her entire, like, 28 hit combo with one grab. And she seems to take either the same or even more damage than some people, because I've noticed playing her that her health goes down very quickly. Her act parser allows her to get out of most attacks, but, I mean, her whole fighting style is geared towards staying as far away from the enemy as possible, which also makes long-range people like Rachel or Noelle kind of difficult to use. Another person that's kind of surprising that's good for taking her out is actually Bang Shishigami. Now, I find him extremely irritating. Shintaro just loves this character, and he was the one that suggested that I make my first rant video using a picture of him. But as I've said in my other rant, Bang's drive allows him to go through most of any attack, and if you time it correctly, he can actually teleport when he does his drive. Which means that he can stop her drive attacks on the ground or in the air, and actually teleport to where she is, and hit her. Oh, and he's very quick, and his quarter circle forward drive nail technique in the air also is very difficult to avoid and gives him plenty of cover to run in and interrupt her before she can attack. His drives allow him to get in close and stay there, and it makes it extremely difficult to get away from him. So he has very punishing combos, he's very difficult to hit, and if you try attacking him at the wrong time, he actually gets in there and messes her up. Because almost nothing you can do can stop him. I mean, if you make it obvious she can stop you, I mean, otherwise he'd be really unfair, but essentially, he can just ruin her fighting style. And in case anyone forgets, this is Jin Kisaragi. I'm trying to just make the images show up here so that they take up enough time so I get my speech cut off while I'm trying to explain it. But basically, Jin's ice riding blades are quick enough to get over to her. His projectile ice attack is also pretty quick. I mean, that's able to go across the screen. His medium one is pretty quick to activate and shoots across the field very fast. So even if you were to do it before you run at your opponent, or maybe just do his slow ice projectile blade before you try and attack, if your opponent does hit you, they'll most likely get hit by the rest of the blade attack before he can move. Before Nu can follow up with her attacks, I mean. And the blade moves are, I would recommend the faster ones, like the mid or the strong one. The drive if you have enough heat, because then if you do hit her, you can freeze her and open up a combo of your own. But Nu is not by any measure invincible. She's very difficult to fight, especially if she has enough heat to do her rapid cancel combo, which, believe me, it takes a bit of practice to be able to do that. But Iron Tager, oh my god, I can't believe no one says Tager's unfair. Have you seen his Genesis Emerald Tager Buster? I've actually done this on practice mode. That move will take out, at the very least, half of your maximum health. If your barrier's gone, that move takes out close to 80% of your maximum health. And it's an invincible startup grab, and it works, counts as his magnetism, so if you hit with any of his drive moves, that move will suck you in. And there's no way to get out of the grab. I mean, it's horrible. And it's really not that hard to do the two full circles. I mean, if you're recovering, or if you jump, or if you just do an attack or something, you can do the 2 quarter circles pretty quickly without him jumping or whatever. And it really can catch people by surprise. And it, of course, only takes 50% of his heat, which means that he can actually do it twice in a row. So if he has 100 heat, he can take you out from full health without really doing much of anything. I mean, Tager is slow, but that's mainly because if he moved any faster, he wouldn't even be fair. It's very difficult for Tager to avoid Nu's drive attacks, because he obviously takes up a lot of room, but that sledgehammer that he has makes the drive ineffective. I mean, the only way that I found to beat Tager when Shintaro was using him against me and doing the sledgehammer a lot, which he did beat me a few times, and I am pretty good with Nu, was that I had to wait and study exactly when he did it, because he couldn't do it exactly every time I did the move. He just kept doing it to kind of inch his way toward me. But basically, it's a pain in the butt. But I'm not saying these are guaranteed to beat Nu, but this will give you an advantage. Arakune, I actually kind of think he should be able to do something, mainly because he teleports a lot. But his tendency to go into the air will make it kind of easy for people to hit him, but don't forget that he can do his backdash at the end of the screen and teleport and come out at the opposite end, letting him quickly cover distance and get over to the enemy. And his bell bugs take up a pretty good area, but I mean, if you can do a zero vector and like warp over to the enemy, and have it come behind them or something, he can actually mess up Nu, and then he'll be hitting her from the other end of the ring.